Hey you guys, what's up? Another episode of Chase Jarvis Raw. I'm Chase Jarvis, and in this episode we talk about brand, building a brand. If you're a creator right now, you're sitting at home on your ass. There are other people who are out there growing their community, building a presence on the internet and in real life. And right now it's not you, clearly, because you're watching this. So I'm going to tell you, actually I brought in, he's creeping right here. I brought in some guy to help us figure out how to do it.
You can have it. World famous photographer Chase Jarvis.
Purecast, exactly the way I like it. Let me tell you a quick story. Back in 2012, I was at my studio working away, and as many times this happens, we get a dropper by, and this particular dropper by was a guy named Ben. I didn't know Ben. Ben showed up and said, hey, I love what you're doing. Can I have a tour of your place? Can I meet, greet? Let's talk about it for a little bit. We had a little conversation.
Had a great conversation.
Yeah, we got a tour of the studio, and I remember this is in 2012. And then a couple years later, I'm like, wow, there's that Ben dude again. He started popping up everywhere. And now, fast forward a few more years later, and just wrapped up campaigns for Nike. I can't open my social feeds without seeing you. So first of all, congratulations.
I'm creeping your social feeds too.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You're creeping the camera
Physically,
space.
online, everywhere.
We're here at CreativeLive. I'm super happy that you're a guest on Chase Jarvis Raw here. The question that I get asked so much is how do I do this thing that you have basically done so well over the last few years, and that's build a brand as a creator. And that doesn't matter if you're a photographer, a designer, an entrepreneur trying to stand out. We talked about this right before we got on the camera. You got a couple thoughts about it. Maybe can you give me like a 3-pack?
Yeah, no, absolutely. First, put out the work that you really want to get hired to do. Second thing, create it with a headline in mind. And the third is to design the life you want to have.
That's it. That's the 3 things. Let's go into each one of those individually. Again, we were talking a little bit off camera before we sat down here. So thing one, I think it's a mystery to some people that, lo and behold, you actually end up getting hired for the work that you put in your portfolio. And I don't care if your portfolio is other things you've built or if you're, again, whether a designer, a photographer, any creator. So how specific should one be, and how do you think about building your portfolio such that you get hired to do that stuff? Because if you've never been hired to do that stuff, how can it be in your portfolio?
Right, you need to prove, I think that you just need to prove that it is possible to do whatever it is you have your vision for, and you need to do it with like minimal amount of resources, right? You need to prove that I can do this with nothing. Imagine what I could do if I had access to resources, and that's the dream you're selling to people, right?
Yeah.
So if you can just kill it on your own,
Yep.
then the brands are gonna be like, oh man, if I help this guy, it's gonna be mind-blowing, right?
Yeah, and I see that all the time. People, like, they get in this quandary. They go, like, I'm never going to be able to shoot on, let's say, automotive because I'll use photography in automotive because it's expensive to get fancy cars. How do you do that? I can never, I'm going to shoot it with my lowered 1984 Hoopty Honda.
Yeah.
But what you want to be able to show is that you can, A, track down a fancy car, B, shoot that car in a way that looks exactly the same or better than anything else that you see out there, ideally different. And doing that with your own resources before you actually have the resources, that's what the people who you're competing against, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, or they're just completely faking it. I mean, I've seen people create shots with like model cars and they just make it look epic. And it's like, hey, I'm gonna trick my way into getting access to stuff. Like you have to talk your way, you have to build the building blocks, right?
Yeah.
Every block you do is one step closer to what you want. Like where do you wanna go? What steps do I need to get there? One step at a time, get closer, get closer, get closer.
Yep.
But you have to go in that right direction. If you start spreading yourself too thin because you feel like you have to, just create a separate brand for that, right?
Yeah.
Like if you need to shoot weddings to survive, shoot weddings. That's on one website.
So change your name.
Exactly. Do something separate and then have the brand you want to have. Build that one, focus on that one, publish that one. That's the one you need. Right?
And these building blocks, these are pieces of your portfolio. He's talking about a building block, but there needs to be probably, if you want to get, let's use our automotive photography example, if you want to get hired to shoot automotive, you probably have to have 10 wicked pictures of cars in your portfolio. And if you don't have that, the likelihood of you getting hired to do that the first time runs somewhere near zero. So you have to have a really consistent, good body of work. And you're putting your own resources, whether it's model cars or renting your buddy's sister's friend's Lamborghini for the day or whatever the thing is in order to get that work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it's not, again, the punchline for your thing one is if it's not in your portfolio, you're not going to get hired to do it.
Absolutely. No one's going to hire you to do what they haven't seen you do before.
Yeah, and it's because they're spending a lot of money on you. They're not going to take a chance. And this is a really critical. What we're talking about is building a brand as a creator. Step one, put the work in your portfolio you want to get hired to shoot. All right, Beautiful. Thing 2, ding. You talked about making your work sort of snackable or easy to describe. Give me a little bit more on that.
Yeah, the idea is if you want people to talk about what you do, i.e. reporters or blogs or anything like that, they need to be able to describe what it is in a really concise manner. And that needs to be shareable.
Yeah.
I mean, if we look at the statistics, the number of people who will comment on an article without ever clicking on it to read it,
yeah.
I mean, that headline is so important. And
right.
if you can, if you can't summarize your project, and if that summary doesn't sound interesting, like I shot a pretty girl on a beach, it doesn't make me very interested. And so
right.
I like to say that it's almost more important these days to create work that is different, that
yeah.
is interesting, than work that is good.
Yeah.
Because it is the average to do good work.
Yeah, good is the get in the door is the way I talk about it.
Everything starts there.
Right.
Yeah, everyone's good nowadays.
Right.
So how are you different?
So
being
different and having that different, be able to be like, what's the
you have to describe the different.
Yeah, how can you describe the different in a phrase? Exactly. So pretty girl on a beach, or shirtless guy standing in front of weights.
Right.
Not that awesome of a description. Versus like give us some of a couple of the
my headlines.
Yeah, a couple of headlines. From
Tied
Ben.
a model underwater, 30 meters under in a shipwreck in Bali. Suspended superheroes on the edge of skyscrapers. My stuff generally plays around with the adrenaline angle, but that's what I love.
Okay, and you can hear embedded in there is a little bit about part 1 that we already talked about. There's Ben's personality is in there. That's what he wants to get hired to shoot, and then he's making it so. And keep in mind, you're not like finding a headline and then building a photo around it. You're designing what kind of work you want to be shooting. You're figuring out what that story is, and then you're finding like what's the best headline or the best way you can package and talk about that. Because what people don't realize is it's not like someone just like calls you and sends you an invoice. Like there's conversations that happen. You have to be able to.
Meetings.
A lot of
way
meetings.
Too many meetings.
Again, and this goes for whether you're a photographer, a designer, an entrepreneur, or anything. No one's going to give you funding. No one's going to give you $1 million to get your business off the ground if you're not able to tell a good story, to have a good reason for being, and to be able to put this stuff, to articulate it. My mom and dad used to ask me like, "What's your photography thing or your philosophy thing all about?" And ultimately, I was able to look back and say, "Oh, that helped me talk about my creativity, helped me talk, give me words and vocabulary around my art." And essentially, that's what you're doing with the headline, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice little tight package. Okay, that's thing 2. Thing 3, which is very valuable. Back to you, thing 3.
Thing 3 is design the life that you really want to have. If you want to travel, create a life that allows you to travel. If you don't want to travel, don't start traveling everywhere. I mean, it's very, very simple.
Don't start a job as a travel photographer. You don't want to travel. You're going to end up with what you actually make, right?
Yeah. If you love being on social media, then great, create social media content. If you hate being on social media, don't try to be a social influencer. There are other ways to get to where you want to be, and so focus on what you want and design your life around that.
It's so. I mean, when you step back from even like 10 steps, it's very easy and obvious to see this. But what I see is so many people are like they haven't. The words that I use are build it with the end in mind. Like, if everything worked out perfectly, where would you want to be in 1, 3, 5 years? Yeah. And you need to like be able to create a really crisp picture about that. And the example we were just joking about is, if you don't like to travel, don't build a job for yourself as a travel photographer. Don't build a portfolio that looks like that, because then when your ultimate dream comes true, you're traveling all the time, and your 6-year-old is at home going like, "Yeah, where's Daddy?" You're trapped, actually. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that.
Create your own prison walls.
Yeah, and so how did you think about that for yourself? Like, what was here's what I want to have my job be?
My life changes every 6 months. Every 2 years, I keep changing, and so it's this work in progress. I actually find speaking about my life, standing in front of a stage and talking to people about why I do what I do.
Yeah.
And I'll give that same presentation after about a year, 2 years, and you'll be like, wait a minute, this is not what I want anymore. I'm talking about the same thing, and then you have these like moments of realization. So I think on a practical day-to-day level, really it's just about like, tell the story of your life. Where is it going? Is that where you're going? Are you still going in the right direction? Like that mountain is always gonna shift, but you need to ask yourself that question, because if you can't challenge yourself to see like, is this really what I want? Then you're never going to reorient yourself until it's too late, and then you're like, oh shit, I need to backtrack, and that gets really, really hard to backtrack.
I love it. And embedded in here, what I think you've probably picked up on is the concept of a narrative. Like right here, we're talking about what it is that you want to be or become, and how do you set your path for that towards that mountain. Or in the previous, examples that we talked about, like if you're not able to create a simple narrative around your work, it's going to be hard for people to talk about it and share it. Hey, this is the guy who shoots the pictures with 3 sheeps, and then the color is really interesting, and then that's just not.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, it's not. So, all right, now let's imagine a world. We're going to try and sum up. Those are the 3 things. If you do those 3 things, is there a world where you can't be successful? You can't have a great brand in design, photography, filmmaking, fill in the blank as a creator. Like if you let's work in reverse order here. If you design it with the end in mind and you're working towards that, you have a very tight description of your work, who you are, what you stand for, and if you've got a bunch of work in your portfolio such that if you got hired for that, you'd be psyched.
Yeah.
Is there a way where you can do those 3 things and not be successful? Is there a missing ingredient?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to create it with the awareness of the world we live in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you live in your own mind and you're creating something that nobody wants, we're ultimately creating for an audience.
Yeah.
So you have to understand what the audience is like, and there is an audience for everything, but you have to know that, right? You have to pay attention to it. You can't just say, I want to be an artist, I want to do this, and just say, like, the world's going to cater to my needs.
Yeah.
It's going to work out. Sometimes, but I think that you still have a very pragmatic role into it, and there is always the constraint of you have a lifeline, you have a runway.
Yep.
And so there is always a ticking time bomb as you walk in that direction.
Yeah.
That you need to hit those milestones. So be aware of real life constraints.
Yeah. I'm gonna say, what's your why? Like if you do all those 3 things and you don't really have a reason for getting up and out of bed every morning, I think you could do those things and make money and not be successful. But if you do it with a purpose, and the purpose is the lens through which you see everything, each of those things, they fall in place.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
You get some magic. All right. I watched this guy build it from the ground up. Super excited. Of course, from where I was sitting, you probably went through some
a lot of
a lot of twists and turns.
Of course.
But super happy to A, have you here at CreativeLive. B, thanks for being a guiding light to so many of us.
Sure. Thank you.
My man, Ben Von Wong. Check him out. VonWong.com. Von Wong. There you go.
It's written.
That was my gear. Signing off until next time. See you next week. And one other thing. Bonus. Is that a double bonus? Bonus. Say it again. We're signing off, and they're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So basically, after Chase saw my portfolio in 2012, he looked at it, scrolled through it, and then he just looks at me and he says, "You need to figure out what the one thing you can do in the world that is better than what anyone else can do." And I'm like, oh shit, I'm not the best photographer. I'm not the best video editor. I'm not the best at anything, and I don't think I'm ever going to be because I'm not technically minded. How can I figure out what this is so that I don't need to worry about earning money ever again? And I took that back with me. I thought about it for a little while, and the output of that thought was, I need to figure out what makes me unique as a human being, because I am the best at being me. No one else will be better at being me. No one else will be better at being Chase. And how can I take the skill sets of what makes me who I am, whether that's my upbringing, my culture, what I suck at, and take those and make those into marketing attributes.
Yeah,
so,
you used an example about you were raised as an engineer.
I was a mining engineer. That means, mining engineering and photography, not very useful, but it gave me the ability to solve problems. So I can solve problems, I can communicate well. I had a background in martial arts, so now I understand movement, I can capture movement. And I really love talking to people. I'm super communicative, so now I can be both a public-facing speaker, so I can not only narrate behind the scenes, I can also shoot them. So these are just attributes of who I am, and you take that all together, and now there's a unique combination that no one else can be. And you need to market the shit out of that.
Right. No, and I love this. This is the language that I use around this. That's a beautiful way of saying that. The language that I use around it is what makes you unique. Find that out and amplify that. And that is if we're all asked to take pictures that 1,000 people before us have taken, but what's the thing that you can put on there that's different, not just better? You referenced heritage. You referenced your awareness for martial arts. For me, it was my background in sports and action sports that led me to, I'm gonna photograph this because I know a shit ton about this. I know all the right people. I know the right places. I know the right stuff. I can do this shit myself. I'm going to put myself in a position where most people would be afraid of for their life and get the shot. And I've seen you do that. Again, if I'm connecting the dots, looking backwards at you and your work and what I know about you now, that was
thanks to you.
Oh, good job. Yeah. Good job, me. No, but again, I give that advice to thousands and tens of, maybe even millions of people, and very few people actually grasp it.
Took it seriously.
Yeah, you did.
I was like, I need to figure this out because money is a problem, and if I want to make a living off what I do, how can I be unique? How can I be the only person that can do that job? And And when you're the only person that can do something, you can ask for as much as you want, right? Because no one else can do it.
What he said. Signing off for another episode. This truly is the end of the episode. If you clicked off early and you missed all this, you're bummed, because that was gold right there. Thanks a lot, you guys. See you again tomorrow. Oh, by the way, before you go, this is my channel. I put out videos every week about creativity, innovation, building businesses, entrepreneurship. If any of those or all those things sounds fun to you, then subscribe, because I put out videos all the time. I would love you to be a part of my tribe, and I will do what I can to add value to you wherever you are, at home, in your underwear in Ohio or Texas or Tasmania. I like all those places.